Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds. Let in the love.
And listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this giant world. He was among us in every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in our soul. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, a place called home, where
Rawr.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear at 82. How to weigh and compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Every Thursday night.
Just like tonight, another Thursday night.
And tonight's going to be a little different. This is definitely the most different of shows that we've done yet. We're only going to be looking at one video tonight. Normally, and before we get started, I'd like to say, IT is meant to be an educational channel. This is not for profit. It is meant to learn and explore. That's always been our mission. That's why we pick a theme every week. We try to find shorter videos, 5 to 15 minutes, that help to explain and teach the themes, the topics that we're exploring, and
to spotlight the channels that they come from.
yes, that's always been one of the first priorities right from the beginning. We've been doing it now for 5 years, and amazingly, we've never really had any problems. In 5 years, we've looked at thousands of videos from hundreds of channels. We've never had a channel directly complain to us. We had one instance about a year back where a channel did a takedown on our episode with YouTube, which ironically the video we spotlighted that night was on a VST plugin, and it was pretty much advertisement for their product. And we did encourage people to check out the plugin, check out the channel, but this particular channel didn't want to allow anybody to reproduce their content at all. So YouTube took it down with no questions asked from us. It was just basically, we're taking this video down. That's been the only instance that we've ever had in 5 years. What kind of pushed this episode tonight is last week at the end of our episode, our stream was taken down, and it was for community violations, for the use of third-party content, something we've done throughout our series, and we've always put in the descriptions and pointed to the content we're using, the channels that are the content creators of that content. And our purpose is to discuss the videos. We discuss them going in, and we discuss them going out. And I kind of like that format because with the shorter videos, it's nicer to just let the lesson play out without interfering with it. You know, we're being told to put our faces on top of the videos and talk on top of the videos, pause them and make it more transformative, which I can understand. That does make it more transformative by adding ourselves on top, but it doesn't always lend to the learning process. So I don't always want to have to interrupt educational video just to make a comment, just to make it transformative. I do like being able to hold my thoughts till the video finishes and then give our thoughts on the video. I
Exactly.
hope in the future we don't have to change that format too much because with the shorter videos, I feel like it's more distracting to break up the education when it's 5 minutes long.
Right. And that's the
And
thing is, with the longer videos, like something that we have for today, it makes more sense to pause at certain points because there will be a lot of things that we'll want to go over. If we tried to save them all till the end, we would, and undoubtedly forget some or, what have you. Whereas pausing partway through could be helpful.
yeah, and this video kind of lends itself more to that approach because it's a discussion. It's a back and forth, and there are moments where it's good to pause the discussion and chew on the information a little bit. So we're going to do it a little different tonight, and I did reach out to the channel. Let's go to the IT cave and take a look,
I'm going
see
to go
what
from over
we've
here.
got here.
There it
Oh,
is.
and I gotta whoosh my way this way so I can see what we're looking at.
There you
Um, I did reach out to the channel. I let them know, this particular video, it couldn't have come at a better time for me. It is something that we're dealing with many other YouTubers. I went down the rabbit hole over the last 2 nights to see is is this going on as much as people say? And yes, hundreds of content creators out there over the past month or so have all of a sudden been getting hit with community guideline strikes and copyright strikes in a lot of cases on content that they've had up for years. And why all of a sudden is this starting to happen? And it's clear there's policy changes going on, not just on YouTube. I mean, you're seeing it on all the platforms are starting to change their policies, mostly because of AI and things of that nature. But they're not always being transparent about these policy changes. You just kind of realize they're happening because now all of a sudden you're seeing these actions being taken.
Now, in some cases, I would also put it that there is such a flood of new video coming on YouTube every single day, right? And to stay ahead of that wave, I'm sure that with the tools they had to, as things are being posted up, they're concentrating on the newest stuff that's hitting. So as you're saying, some of these things are from years ago. Some of this could be the tools catching up with the backlog. Where the
Yes.
tools have been running on the new content up, but now they're actually able to chew through all that and start working back through everything that has been queued up for so long.
Yeah, it's becoming evident that it's not just humans back there doing all the work to put out these strikes. The AI is getting involved, and it's it does not care about context or details. I tried to dispute last week's takedown. I said, we're an educational channel. The episode was all about learning about IR and how it works in music technology, and that was not enough for them. They took the video down anyways. And thank God we actually do record our episodes separately because if I was one of those poor users out there who only have their recordings up on the platform and the platform takes it down with no warning real fast like that, you lose your content. And I'm not one to accept like losing the content that I created. If it's not allowed on a platform, then that's what we're going to do is figure out what's allowable on the platform and what's not.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that the content should get nuked
Right.
that
And
way.
us having the content, and again, if it's not hosted on the platform shouldn't care anymore. And it's more a question of we could use it in other content in the future if we wanted to, and
Yeah.
to synthesize
And
it into something else.
in the case of that one takedown that we did have,
Mhm.
it was 5 minutes of a 3-hour episode. I
Mhm.
would have gladly just removed that 5 minutes for the rest of the acceptable episode, but that
Mhm.
wasn't an option.
Yeah. And even in those cases, we could even still keep the lead in and the lead out, like you were saying, where we introduce the channel, talk about it, and then just not show the video, say
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys can go check it on this channel and talk to, and that
And
way it's still in the right place in the episode and people can go follow that lead for
and
themselves.
and after chewing on all this information we're about to look at, that
Mhm.
was one of my considerations on,
Mhm.
how can we deal with this? And I thought about like maybe going the approach of just mentioning the video,
Mhm.
mentioning the channel, and telling our users, like, here is a good source for this information
Mhm.
without showing the video.
Mhm.
But I, I really can't see that as being as effective and as educational
Mhm.
if we're talking about a video that the viewer hasn't seen.
Right.
Um,
And even if
it,
we were to take a small excerpt, I mean, I'm not even sure if that would even be preferable to the channels for us to
and
take a small chunk just to give, a
and
teaser. Here's what it's like.
And that's a possibility on the right videos where like the the crux of the information is in this one little part, and but at the same time it doesn't do justice to
Right.
the education that the videos we tend to pick, what
Mhm.
they're teaching you. If it's a video on something and there's 3 steps
Mhm.
and we only show the intro and don't actually go through the steps, or we only pick one step to clip,
Right. And that's why
it
I am not a fan of the clip idea. Like I would rather present the content as presented and just discuss it as we do, or not present the clip at all and just discuss the clip and show where the clip is, show the page, discuss where it comes from, and then be able to discuss it from there.
yeah,
For clips that are
if
problematic.
I was going to take the clip approach, then I wouldn't be looking for 5 to 15 minute videos. I
Right.
would go after the longer videos and then find, because that's always a problem. Like, yeah, especially last week, most of the best videos just explaining IR were 40 to 50 minutes. I could have clipped segments of those and got them down to 5, 10 minutes. But I was fortunate and I found good videos from good channels that did fit into our time constraints.
Right. And much like with movies, and you watch a movie trailer, and if all the best parts of the movie are in the movie trailer, then you go see the movie and you're disappointed, right? So same kind of idea happens
Yeah.
here, where if you're going to clip out the 3 things that you like the best out of this video to present to get people to go watch it. If they go watch it and then realize that those were the 3 things, the only 3 things they really needed to know from the video, and the rest was all not filler, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They might just say, oh well, why did I watch the whole video if I only needed these 3 little chunks? That whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing I've been told is, reach out to the content developers and the
Yes.
channels and ask them for permission, which I'm all for. The only tricky thing with a lot of this is not all content creators communicate through YouTube. I can barely keep up with my bell and messages. The big channels, they get so much noise coming from their YouTube messages that things get lost in the shuffle there, even if you're trying to put it in the comment or contacting them directly.
Mhm.
Uh, because we do this every week, and I don't usually get a chance to even start doing research on a topic till maybe Monday or Tuesday before that Thursday. And the internet does not communicate at light speed the way people think. I did ask in this case if we could on Tuesday. You know, I was hoping within the couple of days I might see a response, but given how big his channel is and how much work he has, I can understand that uh, probably hasn't even seen it. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we put in all the information, all the description. We're going to do our best to encourage you to go and check out this resource, because if you are a YouTube content creator, what we're going to look at tonight, these channels are as much a necessity as Miss Crystal, the kind of channels that it's very easy to recommend, because these are the channels that we use for information and to go look at. So all of our viewers should check them out.
Definitely.
And for tonight's channel and tonight's video, um, this is going to be coming from Sean Cannell, and the channel that I came across this. It's not a new channel to us. I've gone to he's got several different channels. I've gone to one of his channels for camera reviews, equipment reviews. He gives great information for the content making side and what gear and things of that nature. But this channel at Think Media Podcast, this one is more orientated towards growing your YouTube channel, making a success out of your content on YouTube. How small channels make big money on YouTube. He's an author, a speaker, and he really is one of the online experts at building a channel up. The videos, they're all super useful information for anybody trying to build a YouTube channel. And in this particular episode that we're going to be looking at tonight, he's going to be talking to Tyler Chou. She is a law for creators. She has kind of shifted her attorney work specifically to content creators, and a lot like Miss Crystal. We've got a channel here that really focuses on the legal side of being a content creator. The advice and the details she's going to give in this, when it comes to dealing with YouTube, working with YouTube, and the rights and wrongs of what you can use, it is something everybody should understand. And unfortunately, you're not going to get that information directly from the platform. They don't explain things properly. Uh, there's a lot of mystery to their algorithm. I'm not convinced they even know exactly how their algorithm works anymore.
I'm pretty sure that's where I am on that too. And it's not, I don't fault them for that. It's just things do, like I said, there's so much that is, added so quickly, and things are changing so fast. I mean, in the 5 years that we've been doing this, AI went from something that was kind of a novelty thought back in the beginning to just being everywhere right now, and can be problematic in so many ways. So it's important to be up to date on what's going on and to watch everything with a critical eye. I mean, understanding that it's so easy to fake so many things with AI right now, that anything that you're looking at, you've got to question whether or not the information is accurate or not. And when we're doing educational things, it's a lot easier because we're watching educational things. But when you're trying to look at things that are, say, more divisive, it's important to be sure of what you're watching.
Yeah, and she will mention how the exceptions that YouTube has in some cases. Educational is one of the top ones for exceptions when it comes to some of these rules. Education, parody, um, these are the approaches that tend to get exceptions because of what they're providing. And I guess the trick for us is to prove we're educational. So, we're going to probably have to emphasize that a little more in our descriptions, our disclaimers, that we are an educational channel. We're here to learn and teach together.
Now, just remember, there will be a quiz at the end of this video.
That's how you know it's educational. You get a test.
It's important.
Yeah. So the video that really kicked this in for me to do this is YouTube channels are getting deleted, and here's why. And Sean is going to talk with Tyler about like this new occurrence that's happening, and it's not so much that it's new. I mean, it has happened. You've heard it over the last 6, 7 years as policy changes have gone through with YouTube, but in the last few months, it's become more common and less explained. The material and the situations have reached a point where it doesn't make sense. It does feel like an AI is just doing this and it doesn't care. It doesn't, you can dispute it and the AI is not listening. It is just flagging, flagging, flagging because that's what it's been programmed to do. And it doesn't seem to know the difference between educational or parody or otherwise.
And in some cases, it almost feels like the tools or the algorithms are flagging all these things. And in the past, with a past policy, let's say, those things would get flagged and then get forwarded to a human to, check and make sure. And then, and it might have gotten to a point where they said, you know what, the algorithm's doing well enough that we just say, take the human out of the loop in most cases and just allow the algorithm to go nuts. I mean, almost feels that way in some cases.
In the past, when you disputed, it did typically take a few days because it required a human to go through the second phase to really review the dispute and the material. My dispute last week, I got an answer within an hour. There's no human sitting over there jumping on our dispute in an hour. That's the algorithm just basically saying, nope, we said this and now we are reinforcing it. And I feel like the human has been taken out of the dispute process, which means that there really is no way to dispute, something you might hear a hint of here in this discussion.
Yeah.
So let's get started with the video, and I will be pausing at certain points to cover some of the things they're talking about, but I'd like to really let them explain what's going on, because Tyler really does understand how the gears work in this situation.
One wrong move and your entire channel could be demonetized, deleted, or you could even get sued.
I had a client who got 3 strikes and he lost his channel. He doesn't even really want his channel back. He just wants his videos back because his best friend was in his videos and his best friend died. You can use 2 seconds of someone's video and they will just put a strike on you. Fair use is not a real thing. It is an absolute rule that if you own the IP, you can put a strike on anyone. You might delete that violating video, but the strike doesn't go away.
So it's true. A lot of creators have been getting copyright strikes on YouTube lately. So what's going on? Well, today we're going to be talking with Tyler Chou, the creator's attorney, a former Hollywood insider who spent 15 years at Disney and major law firms before walking away to exclusively represent creators. And she has some inside information as it pertains to this issue. One wrong move and your entire channel could be demonetized, deleted, or you could even get sued. So Tyler's here to break down why copyright and community strikes are actually exploding right now and what you must know to stay safe. Tyler, first of all, could you define what is a copyright strike versus a community strike?
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me. So yes, I have, in my everyday work, just seen an explosion of creators coming to me panicked and frantic because they have these strikes and they're worried about losing their channels. So a copyright strike is someone is saying that your video contains some IP that belongs to them. So that could be a B-roll, right? You clip someone's video, and even if it's 2 seconds or 1 second, that IP holder can put a strike on you. It could be music, right? This is why I always tell creators you have to use licensed music. You know, I really like Epidemic Sound. Use licensed content, use content that you have permission for or that you've paid for, right? Both on a video and music. That's a copyright strike. A community strike, this is the part that's a lot more ambiguous and harder to determine, because sometimes YouTube will say you have violated our community guidelines, but they won't actually tell you what they are. They just say community guidelines. So it could be, you know, you're giving, you know, false information, like fake medical advice or any type of fake advice, or they think it's some type of scam, or you're talking about things. Sometimes it's political. They don't, you know, YouTube typically doesn't like a lot of political, you know, commentary, but you know, they change their policies here and there, but it could be so many different things, and YouTube doesn't tell you what it is.
Yeah. And on a copyright strike, if you get 3 copyright strikes, you get permanent channel termination. And it is a legal matter, meaning lawsuits or damages are possible. And in a community strike, 3 community strikes in 90 days, channel termination. And this is about platform safety rules, not copyright law. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and before you get into kind of what you're seeing, maybe you're
There is one of the things that I needed more clarity on. You know, copyright strikes, I always understood they're pretty straightforward. Community guidelines is where I think some of these instances that we're seeing now, these new instances, shows that their community guidelines, their policies are changing and have been changing. And what she was mentioning there when it comes to scam videos or political ones, clearly YouTube doesn't have a problem with political videos because they're all over YouTube. So it's not just about like being political. And in the case of scams, I see tons of channels that call out the scams. So if a channel's like premise is to like, let's see if this is a scam or not, and let's test, we're going to buy this product and see if it does what, you know, that's a consumer reports style approach.
Right.
And
And if it is fully unbiased, then that's fine. But in some cases, you could get a consumer reports style thing like that, where it is focused on a particular product or pushing, shall we say, a particular product. And that's where it no longer becomes, you know, in that case, it would be more of an advertising video as opposed to a general consumer thing. So it's important to know the sources of these types of things as well.
But should it be up to the platform to determine whether the person is being too biased or?
Well, that's the thing with the algorithmic way things are done at this point. As you were saying, even a channel that is mentioning you know, bad things, to talk about bad things, not because they're trying to perpetrate bad things. Like, we're not perpetrating a scam, we're talking about scams, we're trying to educate people about a scam, but they see the content containing those keywords and they say, oh, this is a scam, because they see the keywords. Not that we're trying to, you know, educate people away from scams, but they see the keywords and assume it's a scam, and then it just gets through the filter or gets blocked by the filter.
It feels like when it comes to their community guidelines, they're really starting to stretch their or extend their muscles in some cases, because this goes beyond just scams or political. We saw that, you know, during the COVID years, where any videos that might look like they're suggesting medical advice or, you know, somebody giving their opinion on something was deemed to be false information.
Yeah, and some of that can be very dangerous, especially at a time like that, when it can cause a panic, or it can cause people to try, you know, things that they shouldn't try, things that are off label, let's say, to try to fix something that they shouldn't be trying because it is not medically recommended. That's where they, you know, kind of come from with those kinds of things. But at the same time, it's important that I think you're right in terms of whether it's a policy that changed or whether it's something where the policy always was what it is, but now it's being enforced differently because they have the tools to reach out and do it.
Well, and you notice during those years that they started putting little banners and information under the videos saying like, this might be medical advice. JFK assassination videos, something that I always go back down the rabbit hole. And under the videos, there's this little thing saying that, like, here's the official history. And you saw them try to take a step towards like countering whatever the video's talking about with what they consider real information
And again,
versus
at that
potential
point,
opinion.
And at that point, it felt more like a human sitting there making that decision, where somebody was saying, look, we need to, evaluate this. We see that it is, and again, this is on their determination. If this is something that they don't want to have on the platform or do want to have on the platform, that's entirely up to them. It's their platform. So when somebody makes that determination at headquarters and says, this video is no good and this video is fine, that's, we have to be able to dispute it at that point. But it really does come down to what the content is. Is it dangerous? Could it be dangerous? Is it, spreading misinformation? That's something that, again, that we're never trying to do. We're always trying to get to the truth of things and, introduce people to channels that are educational and helpful in as many ways as possible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and is it dangerous? I understand why the platforms and people in general are starting to feel like words and information can be dangerous. But I feel that when it comes to information, it's up to the viewer to make their own decisions. And if we go down this slippery slope of deciding like what information is dangerous and what isn't, I feel like we're going back to the burning books and censorship discussions of the 20th century, where, oh my God, now books are cheap, and these stories in these books could affect people's education, or comic books could make our kids like into deviance.
I mean, censorship can be taken too far for sure, but at the same time, we can't have no censorship because there are things that
I
should
agree.
be out there. So, I mean, it's just a question of where that line is drawn and how things are either enforced. And in this case, again, comes down to the platform where it's their rules. So kind of, their house, their rules. So I kind of look at it that way.
And that's why I would feel more comfortable if it seemed to me that the platforms are using humans who a well-balanced humans, multiple sides, so that there's no one-sided, because unfortunately with the platform sometimes you do see them kind of slide towards one side or the other, especially when it comes to like things like politics and science. And if the human reviewers are well balanced in assessing the information and whether something is worth not worth censoring, let's just say it, worth removing because this provides no benefit to knowledge, to education, to
Well,
if it was,
I mean, that's
if
not
it
really the
was
criteria,
humans, I'd feel more comfortable if the platform is using humans. When it feels like it's just machines, like just looking for certain phrases and keywords and making assumptions like that, that's a scary prospect.
It is, but at the same time, that can help block, 90 whatever % of some of the problematic things while catching some, as you're describing. There are some things that will get caught up in that don't need to be censored, but got caught up because there were keywords in there. Those are the kinds of things that should be reviewed by a person, where a lot of the stuff can just be written off as, okay, that one is clearly violating policy and it's just out, a lot of that can be just knocked out that way.
And I guess by going through the process, it will help to identify those gray areas. And I guess we can't establish what's good or bad without going into the rabbit hole here.
Because every situation is unique, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So the platforms are going to make their decisions, and you're right, it is their platforms to make those decisions. But I hope they do listen to the audience, because whenever there are these gray areas, and if the platform insists this, but the masses say that, this is where we've got to find a way to meet in the middle with the platforms.
well, it's actually, I think, more of a three-way thing where we've got the platforms, we've got the community, and we have the law. So, I mean, we have to get legal involved also, where, they're changing laws. And so now the platforms have to adhere to new changes in laws and, also serve the community well. And the community has to abide by the laws and by the platform's rules. So
And
everything is
and
kind of a tug of
and
war.
it's where the law applies, where it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to understand something that's a law. It's easy to understand when a law's been broken and why you can't
Well,
do
that's the
that.
thing is you
But
yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of gray area. That's, I mean, the entire legal profession is about that gray area of, it's very straightforward when you read it, but then a defense lawyer could be looking at it and saying, well, this word here, and they're coming up with different ways of interpreting that law to change the outcome essentially of what they're trying to look at.
well, see, with the platforms making decisions on what people say or how they say it, um, I feel like they're making their own laws in those cases. And it's like you mentioned before we started tonight, it is the Wild West right now.
Yeah, and in some cases, they're protecting themselves by erring on the side of censoring something, as opposed to err on the side of showing something that's going to be a problematic with a law somewhere.
Yeah.
More content than would be legal, and that way they're sure they're on this side, even if the law does slide a little closer towards blocking more of the content.
Yeah, yeah, and I can understand their safe approach there. So, we are definitely not criticizing YouTube tonight. We are really trying to understand where they're coming from,
Yeah, and
and
just find the landscape and how this all fits together, really.
yeah, yeah. So let's see what Tyler. Now that we've understood copyright strikes versus community guideline strikes, and it's the community ones that really I need to learn more of. I want to thank these two again, Sean, Tyler. This is important for everybody to understand.
And changing daily and faster and faster. So this is important stuff to catch up on and stay up on as things go forward.
Yep.
Your prediction of why this is happening, and then even thoughts about what creators could do about it. The reason creators are fearing these is because they're getting video takedowns. There's a risk of lawsuits and legal fees, loss of monetization rights or limited channel features, temporary upload bans, loss of streaming rights or monetization even after one strike, even reputational damage with audience or sponsors. So these are a big deal. So you can see why creators are definitely nervous about this. So what is it that you're seeing happening, and why do you think there's been a rise?
I haven't gotten confirmation, but I do have some feelers out, but I think YouTube has just changed their policy. The sheer volume of complaints that YouTube gets, realize that we have billions of users on YouTube every month, right? And so a lot of people are putting complaints of copyright infringement. And what happened in the past was YouTube would personally handle every single one of those complaints. And now they simply can't, right? There's just too many of them. So what they're doing is they've created this new system where the IP holder can just go put a strike and then it's automatic. And then the IP violator will have to basically, figure it out with the IP holder. So YouTube has said, there you go. I'm going to put you guys in this corner and you go figure out what you want to do. I have had clients come to me and say, so I use B-roll from this biology channel. Everybody does it. We take clips of their animal in the wild. and this person put 3 strikes on me. What do I do? I'm so scared I'm going to lose my channel, because 3 strikes is not automatic. Sometimes like they sit there and then YouTube like determines what they want to do. Sometimes it's automatic, sometimes it's not. So I told this client, I said, well, let's go to the other side, this biology channel, and ask them what can we do to make this right? Right? Because a lot of my work, and I say this to my junior attorneys, like, it's not about the law. It is about the law, but sometimes it's about human behavior and how do you make something right? How do you say to the person, I'm sorry, I did this wrong thing to you. How do I make it right? So we went to them and said, we're very sorry. We understand, that we used your IP without your permission. What can we do? And they said, pay me and give me credit. And so we did. And we paid him, I think, $500 for those 3 clips, and he took the strikes off. Now, I've had clients who have come to me having used music from the game developers or music publishers, and the game developers are just fed up. I mean, it's just been years and years of violations. Like Square Enix or Nintendo, they just don't play. Like they will put a strike and it will stay there. I had a client who got 3 strikes, and we actually have been trying to get them, Square Enix, to engage with us, and they just won't. And he lost his channel. It's actually a really sad story because he doesn't even really want his channel back. He just wants his videos back because apparently his best friend was in his videos with him, and his best friend died, and he didn't have a second copy of these videos, which like that's a big problem. All creators should have their raw footage saved somewhere else, and that's what we're trying to get back from him. And these game developers are just done. They're like, we're not going to remove these strikes. If you're going to steal our content, basically, we're just going to put strikes automatically.
And that's very nerve-wracking because a lot of game developers are fine with people streaming using the footage and the music because it's perpetuating the message of the game. But that's interesting to hear. I know Nintendo has notoriously been like just not pumped about that. And I didn't know about Square Enix. So, okay, so what can people do? I know on a broad level, if you upload like talking head videos by yourself in your room, no music, nothing else, just your own likeness and your own IP, then you're not going to run into really copyright strikes because it's all your own stuff. And then if you're family friendly, essentially, you're not going to run into community strikes. But YouTube is not that simple for a lot of creators. There's so much diversity. In some cases, their content's maybe more mature. In some cases, they might be, I know, firearms content, which is controversial or divisive in a lot of ways, and even on YouTube, the way it's treated, but it's also very practical here in America, Second Amendment type of community that people want to talk about. And then if you get into cannabis or these other things, there's a lot of things with community strikes. So moving forward, what would be the next steps for creators listening to this to be thoughtful and practical tips in light of this kind of like rise in these strikes happening?
Well, I think creators are not going to want to hear this, but I think you should review the terms of service. You should review the community guidelines that YouTube puts out and just kind of broadly understand what is it that YouTube does not like you to talk about, right? I know that there are channels who sometimes say, oh, I can get you access to these jobs. You don't need any experience. You don't need education. You can just make money at home, like in like data entry almost, right? Those types of jobs. I've heard of these channels getting strikes and saying that these are scams, right? They're not like real jobs. So anything that invites people to potentially pay, well, don't do that, right? Like don't make people pay you to give that information, because that exchange of money will definitely flag something for YouTube. But I've also heard of channels that are just doing that freely because they want to help people, have work from home jobs. I've heard of strikes, community strikes happening there.
Can you double down on that? Because
now, this is one that I have heard from certain users who exactly this situation. One lady who her channel is all about work at home opportunities and different ones that you can try and check out. She wasn't like trying to sell any of those on anybody. She was just like showing the different opportunities that are out there. And in one night, they deleted 4 years worth of content and her channel with no explanation.
Yeah, and that's where again, when as the guidelines change like this, if you don't know that you've been violating something because it wasn't a violation at the time, all of a sudden you can all of a sudden have 3 strikes out of nowhere, and hopefully your channel doesn't just immediately poof, and then you get a chance to actually try to fight it.
Well, and if this was acceptable for YouTube for 4 years in her case, and all of a sudden the game changed, the goalpost changed, and your channel and content is no longer on this field.
Honestly, it feels like nothing necessarily changed in that as much as it changed with the enforcement mechanism, where they didn't have the ability to go back and hit all of these in the past. So they whatever filter they were using, whatever algorithm they were using at the time, didn't flag it. But now they have whether it's a better algorithm or a more finely tuned algorithm that
Seems like it's a more aggressive. Seems like it's a more aggressive algorithm.
And again, part of that might be because of the changing legal landscape, where as things change, they want to now again move the goalposts in order to stay on the safe side of the goalpost. So if they're saying, okay, this is now no longer acceptable, it could be because things were legally getting closer to that point. It's hard to say what reasons that do it.
That's certainly going to stifle some up and coming channels, some new YouTubers who want to possibly make a channel and focus on a certain content. And I mean, it's hard to know if what you're doing is going to be acceptable 2, 5 years, 10 years down the road.
And some of it has to be trial and error. So, like with, transformative content, watching a video with us on screen might be different than, just having a video up. So we can find out if this will be different in terms of, community versus the other strikes content.
Yeah.
And we don't want any strikes, of course. So
yeah, with that's the whole purpose. The whole purpose of tonight is to understand it, hopefully avoid it. Those who have joined us might have noticed they're on a different YouTube channel tonight. We do have a Talkin Shhh I.T YouTube channel, and tonight we're going there because we have to be real careful with the Angified channel. We've worked too hard for too long to jeopardize it. Like to get a strike on that channel really does scare me. Just like she said at the beginning, it's like, oh my God. Anytime there's a strike, it's it's concerning.
Yeah. And again, we had to kind of learn about them as we go. We had one at some point over some videos that we had showed with musical content that was aggressively gone after. It didn't have to be a takedown on the video, but it was one of those that popped up on us that we weren't expecting at all.
Yeah. The few weird ones where they weren't takedowns. It was like, this is not available in some countries, and it became more of a territorial issue, which you're going to see once in a while with YouTube, especially when you're dealing like with us with music and so much different type. There's certain music that in certain parts of the world, they just don't allow it. And there's nothing that can really be done about that.
Right. But at the same time, that shouldn't get your channel shut down, though, is the thing.
Actually, the most obvious of those situations was when the Russian embargoes started, a couple of years ago. Because when the Russian embargoes started, like all YouTube content seemed to be getting blocked in Russia. So should you be concerned if your content isn't available because there's an embargo going on and YouTube's part of it? I don't worry about that so much, because that's not a strike. That's just, less people can see the content.
Right. And again, we probably don't have the largest viewership in Russia, just as a guess. Not that there's a reason that there wouldn't be, but in terms of, we're focused internationally, so we do have people all over the world who come to see stuff here. But we do speak in English while we're here, so for the most part, it's an English speaking audience.
Well, and on our other nights when we're playing music and spotlighting artists, we do have some Russian artists and some of my favorites. It's a shame if they can't actually see like their material on like the show and the reactions that we get. It'd be a shame that they can't experience that.
But again, that comes down to, you know, what kind of content was getting blocked internationally like that. And as you said, it might be a certain type of music, and if they're in that region making that kind of music, that would be problematic already, right? Because if it's blocked there, it's blocked there for, you know, reasons. So if they're trying to do it there locally and then trying to have it come here and play it there, that could be a whole nother ball of wax you're getting into there.
Well, and the irony is the countries where metal is kind of a no-no have some of the most hardcore metal fans, and believe me, it they'll find a way to get their music. If they can't get it from YouTube, they'll find it somewhere else, and yet a country can't really decide what people can and can't listen to musically. Again,
Some countries can.
that's a form of censorship.
And some countries can. They can just flat out say, you cannot see this. And, you know, that's acceptable there. So, you know, we have our rules and we understand and respect that other places have other rules. And when it comes to things like this, we just have to learn the landscape. So if it is that they can't see metal in Russia, for example, then, you know, we just have to accept that if we want to show a metal show, it's not going to be shown there. And the people in Russia, if they want to see it, they would have to do something like a VPN or what have you, you know, as a thought.
Which, considering, you know, we've had metal shows in our lineup, it is something we've run across. And I can understand if it's because of a country's policies a lot easier than where we're talking the platform being the policy, not the country. You know, I guess this is where um, you see the difference in enforcement. Like how the country enforces it versus how the platform enforces it, different situations.
Now, another thing is if they are going to make a change like this that's going to result in so many new strikes going out, let's say, they could have, you know, gotten around some of this by saying, okay, well, we're going to have this big push of more strikes coming out because we're getting more decisive about what we're locking down. But at the same time, they could have then upped the number of strikes that would make an automatic channel break. You know, so they could say, okay, well, we're going to hit this, and you might get hit with 3 automatic strikes, but then all of a sudden, you know, but it's 6 strikes before your channel gets blocked. You know, something like that, where they could still be able to send the same message about which is acceptable versus unacceptable content without automatically getting rid of people's channels, you know, just with no warning.
And I don't think that would be the best approach for them to extend the strikes.
I mean, like a one-time.
It would be like baseball. All of a sudden, it takes 6 strikes to go out. If the game changes like that, it means that they're just accepting that, oh, there's more people are getting struck because our algorithm is causing it. So now that there's more of them, let's change our policy and allow more of them before we kick them off. That's not a solution. That's a band-aid on a bigger problem.
Well, right. I was suggesting it as a band-aid, as a way of getting past that initial push of the extra content strikes going out, and then allowing people to learn the new landscape without having their channels immediately get blocked out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, it wouldn't be a permanent solution. But at the same time, another sports analogy would be when they came up with the 3-second rule in basketball. Like, you know, it was never a thing before, you know, but you no longer can stay in the paint for more than 3 seconds. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's all these, you know, people getting called for being in the paint. I mean, is it better? Did it help the game? People would say that it did. You know, it changed it up so that you couldn't just stay under and dominate. But I mean, there's reasons that you make changes in a game, and there's reasons that rules change, and you have to learn.
Hopefully it is to improve the game.
Right.
Hopefully, or to balance it out better. You know,
or fix a specific situation that was causing a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good analogy, because there are times where you do need to make adjustments to balance out the game better, and that isn't as big of a game changer, no pun intended, than saying, okay, it's going to take 6 strikes now.
Yeah.
That would change baseball if you go drastically changing the format.
But at the same time, it would also change baseball if all of a sudden strikes, instead of being called in a box like this, are going to be called in a box that's like this. They double the size of the strike zone, and all of a sudden out of nowhere. So all of a sudden it's so much easier to strike everybody out all day long. That's what we're talking about here, is they're changing the rules to make it easier to get strikes.
Or how about in the case of equipment, a football that's deflated a little bit? I'm looking at you, Patriots. You know,
Had to come up.
and that's what this all feels like. It feels like this is a giant sports game, and yes, the goalposts are like all over the place.
And again, partially because the terrain is changing. Like we're playing on a non-flat field, so they have to adjust where the goalposts are to account for the new hills that are showing up in the middle of the field. It's something where I can see that the speed of things changing is going to get faster, not slower. It's not going to settle into something that doesn't change going forward. Things are changing faster, and they're going to keep changing faster. So it's important to get caught up and try to make new laws or new rules that are forward-looking to see where things are going, so that we don't end up having major shifts every 6 months to a year.
Yeah, and I do think you're right. The AI is both the cause and the effect in what we're seeing here.
It does feel like it. I mean, just in terms of, like we said, the volume difference, the difference in volume of strikes that are happening now, and the fact that it's on all different kinds of content across, several years worth of stuff as like a backlog, as we discussed before. Lots of different reasons why it feels that way.
Yeah. So let's continue and see where they go now.
It's interesting what you're saying, but some people might be, wait a minute, I can't sell my product or service on YouTube because it'll be an exchange of money, versus what you're describing in terms of like being paid directly. What would be the difference if a freelancer just wants to be hired themselves, or if they're saying it's maybe a make money opportunity and it could be viewed as a scam? Can you clarify?
I think if there's language in there that just sounds too good to be true, like, oh yeah, you can make $50 an hour at home. You don't need any experience. You don't need any education. Like, YouTube has, their content ID system, and they will put in certain code or certain keywords that they will flag, that they will deem that to be a scam, even if it's not, right? I think it's very different when you're selling a product. Like, if you're a creator and you're selling, I don't know, a template or a community, that's not a scam, right? But you have to just be careful with your language, that you're not like overselling it or making it the too good to be true. I think is a good threshold. Like, if it sounds too good to be true, like, oh, like, I will give you this free template and you'll make $10,000 this month. What's the catch, right? Like if somebody's thinking what's the catch, then that will most likely flag it in the YouTube content ID or their codes that they put in.
That makes sense. And if it's a guarantee of income, like you can make $50 an hour from home with no experience. I hope this video doesn't get flagged. We're just using that as an example. And right. So, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So you're breaking down tips, read the terms of service. And here's an interesting thought as well. You could use any AI, but Gemini is owned by Google, and Google owns YouTube, and is a good place to prompt, hey, could you explain the terms of service and YouTube's community guidelines, and point me to them? But even more so, you could say, this is my channel, this is the content I use, and you could, I love verbally prompting AI, and talk to AI about it. It could be an interesting way. I do a lot of summary of sometimes huge pages of information, and I'm like, my question's like, what are the red flags, or what are the red flags for me that would be applicable to my channel, my niche, and things I could consider. And so consider using AI to review the terms of service, YouTube's community guidelines. Like you said, most creators don't want to do it, but if you're going to treat this as a professional creator, that's why videos like this, video podcasts like this are critical. So that's a great tip. Be careful with your language. Any other tips to stay safe?
I mean, Sean, I actually love that. I'll just take it a little further, right? What you could do is ask Gemini, I don't know if you have to feed it in there, but say, here are YouTube's community guidelines. Here you learn this. And then here's my script for this video. right? Is there anything here that you think might flag YouTube's, now it's not a guarantee, right? But it's better than not doing it. And it could say, well, you might want to consider rewarding this, or this might be a potential issue for you. So I really like that suggestion. I think that's really smart. I think creators can do that instead of manually reading, 10, 20 pages of this and then trying to figure out if they're going to get in trouble. So I really like that. What are other things that you can do? I mean, if you're giving advice, right? If you're giving medical advice or legal advice or financial advice, making sure to say, this is my own opinion. This is for educational purposes only. This is not formal advice. Please talk to your own doctor, for personalized care, like things like that. I do a lot of that for a lot of doctors or lawyers who want to start their channels. They ask me to write a disclaimer for them, to potential releases for guests that they have come on, because you just want to have that language in there that protects you, that makes YouTube realize that you're thinking about this and that you're not being thoughtless or careless, in how you approach your videos. I think that's very important. But we could also do everything perfectly and you might still get a strike. And so I think what to do is, the moment you get a strike, you have to try to act on it immediately. Because what you don't want is for that second strike to happen. And then, like the worst would be for the third strike to happen. Because each strike stays on your channel for 90 days. And what people don't realize, that creators don't know, is you might delete that violating video, but the strike doesn't go away. I think maybe a long time ago it did. And so people have this fallacy, oh, well, I'll just delete the video and then it'll be fine. No, the strike actually doesn't go away until, if it's a copyright strike, then the copyright holder has to remove it. Or if it's a community strike, then YouTube has to remove it.
But one of the things you're also saying is that these are appealable. You can appeal these.
Yes. But can I share a story with you? It's going to blow your mind. So I had a client come to me with a community strike. She had 2 on her channel, and we did all of our research. We actually drafted the appeals language for her, and I care very deeply about my clients. So I said to her, I was like, I want to do this with you. So we're gonna Zoom live. You're gonna share your screen, and I want to see you do it, because she said the first time she did it, like the system glitched on her and she couldn't put the language in. And so I was like, okay, this one I'm gonna do it with you. So she pulls up the appeals, page. And there's like a little empty box, right? You're supposed to write in there. So we go click on like start the appeal. And she said, I'm just going to type it in. I don't even want to cut and paste because I'm worried it'll do something weird. So she clicks the button and then it went away, Sean. It said, thank you so much for submitting your appeal. We'll be in touch soon. We didn't even get a chance to put in anything. And then, do you want to hear what happened an hour later?
Please.
YouTube says your strike has been removed. And we're like, what are you talking about? And so now we just don't know, right? It's so arbitrary. The first one, this happened to her. It didn't get removed. So now I'm writing an official letter to YouTube to try to get that first strike removed. But I'm actually going to talk to some of the executives at YouTube and ask them, I have the video, right? I recorded the whole thing. Like, why is this happening? Like, you won't even allow a person to put the appeal in. There's a problem here. There's a glitch here. But this is also sort of terrifying, right? Now, it's terrifying and maybe good, right? Because the strike got removed, but you have no rhyme or reason, right? What terrifies humans the most is not knowing, right? We don't know what caused the strike, and we don't know how to appeal the strike or how to remove it. So why did that happen with the second strike, but not with the first? Right? Because if both of them got removed, that would be great. But it's the second one that got removed. So it's very weird. This client, and there was something weird too. They do lives every day, but the lives, what they say in the lives actually don't get any strikes put on them, but it's when they upload the video. And I think it's because, when we upload our videos, YouTube has more time to actually read it, right? They read and they check the content. That's why I'm saying they're checking, right? Remember, they all like checks for a while. I think they're checking for keywords and potential violations in that upload. But for the lives, this is not official advice, but like from what I'm seeing, it seems like the lives are a little less stringent, the content ID there. I don't know. That's what it seems like.
It does make sense because whenever you upload, there's multiple pages now where you're also scoring your content. Basically, you're saying it does not include these things or leaving a human element there, and you don't do any of that for live. You just go live. So that is a hot take. So there's been some great tips, and I want to recommend that there might be some additional questions you have. There is a series now that we've been doing with Tyler, and we'll link to the playlist in the description in the show notes of the video podcast, because you might want to go deeper on some of these things. But there's also just a few tips that I wrote down here to consider. And Tyler, you might give us a final note on some of these of how to stay safe on YouTube with copyright and community protection. Community strike protection. So use your own content when possible, or license the content. That'll keep you safe, or check for commercial rights and attribution rules. Of course, you can create such channels. I watch show recaps, ending explained of movies and TV shows. And in this case, people are using photos and video clips of these shows. And a lot of times they are okay because they understand fair use, but they don't rely on it blindly. Fair use is legally defensible, but it's not a shield, right? So,
I want to talk about fair use, Sean, if we can. I think it's the biggest misconception that creators have. Okay, so fair use is not a real thing.
If you're ready to get serious about starting and growing a successful YouTube channel, then you're going to love vrapodcast.com. For a limited time, we have a special sale happening on our YouTube course and coaching membership that includes the online course, the 80-page workbook, and access to the private community. Inside of this program, you have everything you need for starting a successful YouTube channel all in one place. You get access to checklists and resources that will save you time, reduce stress, and help you reach your YouTube goals faster. But also, the most powerful part is the community. It's not just other creators and entrepreneurs that are ambitious and reaching for their goals, but it's also the Think Media faculty that's in your corner, answering your questions and helping you stay motivated on your journey to YouTube success. And for a limited time, we are running a big sale at vrapodcast.com. So if you want to check it out, just click the link in the show notes or go to vrapodcast.com. All right, let's get back into the episode.
I mean, it is.
Now, one thing I wanted to bring up on what they were discussing there, the difference between live and uploading your content.
Right.
Because that is something that I think will be changing a little bit on the approach. When it comes to live streaming, especially with YouTube, and given the confusion and these changes that are going on, I'm more reluctant to do lives on YouTube at this point. We'll continue to do it at least on this channel, but I'm worried about affecting Angie's platform with trial and error. There's too much to lose with a channel like that. So it seems like if YouTube is treating these rules differently for live infractions versus when you go to upload, you'll know whether your content's acceptable, because when you upload it, it goes through a thorough review of everything, says like if there's anything with a problem, you've got to fix those things before you can actually publish your video. So there's a checking system to keep you on the up and up.
And I think this comes back to, again, whether it comes to enforcement or whether it comes to just the ability to go through all the content, where previously, it can go through all that stuff with the uploads because it has the time to, and because you're self-scoring, like they said. But when it comes to the lives, they just couldn't be on top of it that much. So there were only certain things that would trigger a live to immediately get shut down. But now it seems that they have more, whether it's more resources or better algorithms, to be able to go after things even in a live. So it could just be that it's now the enforcement happening where previously it was not able to happen because of the sheer volume of stuff coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, and live is definitely where I think the AI is in charge. They don't have
Kinda
enough
has to be.
humans there to keep up with the live content.
Right. And I agree. But I mean, there could be, you know, a human in the loop on, you know, for these 100 AIs or whatever. Like, you know, there's some ratio of having a human in the loop to oversee, you know, basically as a manager. Like, so the AIs can, you know, flag things, but then, you know, send it up the chain to have it looked at by someone.
Yeah.
But, you know, it depends if they just want to block it algorithmically and say it's out and then, you know, have the community work their way around those new guidelines. That's, you know, it is their platform. So.
Well, let's see if there are any solutions.
Thing, but it's a real thing in court, right? So if you get sued for infringing on someone's copyright and you go to court, you say, judge or jury, you know, my usage of this content falls under fair use because of these 4-prong tests, right? One is it transformed? The second is, you know, is there a market value, meaning like, are you making money from it, right? And then you've heard if it's, you know, if it's a commentary, if it's a critique, you know, these different things. And a lot of times, I mean, it's you don't have to hit all 4, or like it's not like if you fail one, it's a balance test, right? They will say, well, if it's completely transformed, then maybe it's fine. But what creators misunderstand is they think, well, I can just go use this clip and then just put fair use on screen, and then I'm protected like a bulletproof vest, right? And that's not true at all. And especially based on what we were saying, YouTube now allows the copyright holder to just put a strike. You can use 2 seconds of someone's video and they will just put a strike on you. And you can't say to that person, but it's fair use. Like, that's not a real thing, right? It is an absolute rule that if you own the IP, you can put a strike on anyone. And this is what people don't understand, because they see the show recaps or the movie critiques. And let me explain to you sort of what is happening there. I worked at Disney, you know, for several years. And this was the policy at Disney at least 10 years ago. I don't know what the policy is now. But Disney does not actively go after violators who use their content in a neutral or positive way. Now, if you use somebody's content in a negative way, then they will come after you. But for the film studios and the TV networks, showing a small clip of their film or TV is actually like good marketing for them, because they will remind someone, oh, I want to go watch that movie now. It's when you show the whole movie or the majority of the show, they don't like that, because then you're taking away their market share, right? Or someone signing up to watch their show on their streaming platform. So, but that's not every studio, right? Like, some studios are not okay with it. Like, I did a deep fake video last year, and I put a bunch of clips of movies, you know, do you know that Tom Cruise guy, that guy that looks like Tom Cruise? He does like all those deep fakes. I actually used some of his videos, and when I was uploading it, YouTube flagged it and said, you can't use this content, because it was like slightly over 5 seconds. And you know, like, I think creators know how to play the system a little bit. If it's like 2 to 3 seconds, it tends to be okay. But when it goes to five or more seconds, it flags it for them. So you just have to be careful. If you're not using licensed content, you don't have permission, you can get that strike. And you can't fight it by saying, but this is fair use, because that's not a real thing. A fair use is a defense in litigation. And I think most creators don't understand that. They think, well, I used, you know, it was a parody, right? But you're still making money from it. Most YouTubers, you know, like, their channels are monetized, so your videos are monetized. And so that's a hard argument to say, well, I'm just using this for commentary. And so I think it's a fallacy that most creators have to just realize. You can't use fair use as a shield, basically.
And such an important distinction. And again, some creators might be listening to this like, am I vulnerable when I just, you know, use all my own footage? Well, no, you wouldn't be. But there is a huge industry with the opportunity to do commentary, criticism, and parody. And so you do want to know this information. And there's going to be a level of risk, to your point, Tyler, as soon as you use somebody else's content. But these recap tips, and you may have a few other thoughts here. 1, only use content you own or license. 2, understand fair use, but don't rely on it blindly. 3, use YouTube's copyright tools, or make sure you're using royalty-free music. So YouTube does have a free audio library for free musics and sounds. We love Epidemic Sound. I'll link to that in the show notes. If you want better music that's going to keep your channel safe for sound effects and music, it's what we use here at Think Media for great music. And you can use YouTube's Content ID Match to monitor if your videos are flagged. The thing about uploading a video in advance is before you make it public, there might be an issue that you can then correct before you make it public. Of course, it's frustrating that sometimes it doesn't see it. The video goes live and then maybe it happens later. You're like, oh, the video's been out and now it's been flagged. Or to your point, if it's somebody else that's flagging it, but definitely use YouTube's copyright tools. Stay updated on community guidelines. Number 4, we talked about that. Avoid sensitive topics or handle them carefully. And we do have a couple episodes coming up. So subscribe to the Think Media podcast for more on some of this stuff. Don't spam with misleading titles, thumbnails, or tags. 7, appeal smartly, not emotionally. Appeal to if you get flagged. One of the things that we had my friend Ruslan on the podcast, he did a lot of commentary on the Joe Rogan show, and he did it very transformative. He was just doing clips. He was commentating, and he got multiple strikes all at once. And he did appeal them, and the whole thing turned around. And actually, it turned out that it was like a third party, not even Joe Rogan himself. And Joe Rogan didn't care. He even knew somebody over there. And there was some other times where he will react to a lot of public media, and he just does his appeal very professionally. And I do think AI can help you with that. And then, of course, if people want to go to a deeper level, they can hire somebody like you to think about.
See, there is a very common situation there, because when it comes to like Joe Rogan and some of the other popular channels, that 100 channels will comment and respond to like one of his episodes or one of those situations. And as he mentioned, there's a whole industry that's ripe for commentary and opinions. How you handle that and whether it ends up biting you in the ass is all about understanding these fine lines.
Yeah, and it's not always written out in black and white in the terms of service, where it depends on your content and how you're using it and how it's transformed and all of that. So there's a lot to it. But as you start your channel and as you start doing these things, you will find which things are, acceptable versus not, and you try to navigate that as best you can. This is great advice to try to help navigate that and try to see where those guidelines are, where those, where you're stepping out of bounds, essentially.
Yeah, I think he just nailed a great checklist there, that if you can go through this checklist and see if there's any weak spots in the criteria, then you have a potential issue with YouTube.
Yeah, and I like the suggestion for the sound effects and music. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, well, and sound effects is the part that actually is surprising me that it's going that far, because I understand like the music IDs and, oh my God, you can't play like somebody else's music just willy-nilly. But sound effects, if it gets too crazy there, like people using like clapping hands or laughing tracks and just general sound effects that are like literally a second or two, that's a tougher road to copyright.
And that's where that second or two is kind of important there, because like they were saying before, a second or two or three usually is fine. But when you get to 5, then you start having problems when it comes to a show clip or a song. Same thing might be true with sound effects, where a short little burst is not a big deal. But if you're using something like the, I don't know, the characteristic sound of a particular bass line, like you were talking about before, a drum intro or a bass line or something where there's a very specific like for a sound effect, there could be something that's a longer stretching one that's 5 seconds or longer.
How about like a snare drum on an intro? And now,
yeah, there you
go.
Maybe that's more than 5 seconds, and that triggers something.
If somebody just needs a drum roll and they just go look on the internet, I mean, you're going to find them everywhere.
Right.
If you grab that drum roll from the wrong place and it turns out it's part of an exclusive library where I guess this drum roll is more special than the other ones, is the algorithm going to differentiate between this drum roll and that drum roll because they sound exactly alike, except one has a fingerprint that's tied to a sample library?
That's the question. And it could be as easy as that. It could be that something gets flagged for something like that, and you're like, how? It's just a drum roll.
Yeah, these audio fingerprints are really concerning me. If we get to the point where we start to have unique IDs for everything, so oh my God, the drum kit I'm using, half the drums are samples that come from this library, and the other half of the drums are samples I made myself, and they all sound like every other drum out there.
Yeah.
I know they can identify through the audio fingerprint and say, yes, this is a snare from a Steinberg sample on this library, but should they?
Again, that's where those samples are short enough where, and again, it's not a song, it is a sound, and it is very short and abrupt. So it is something that, technically you can use. And that's, that's why they're able to sell the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess it's going to depend on how unique in the identification is, like, a character's voice or something that like you can instantly identify to the brand.
What about an impersonator? Somebody could do the the Marvin the Martian voice, as well as Marvin the Martian can, and would that get flagged? That's
Yeah, I've heard a guy on YouTube that sounds exactly like Howard Stern, and I wonder how that flies by. Well, I guess it is under comedy, parody with impersonation,
and he's not identically, he's not reading from a script of what Howard Stern did. He's not trying to duplicate Stern's show. So he's just doing another show of his own. Even if he is trying to be Stern, he's not trying to completely mimic the content.
And he's not trying to deceive in that case.
Right. He's not trying to pretend that he is. Right.
That Tom Cruise, those deep fake videos that she was talking about earlier,
right.
That was a big deal about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, where like deep fakes really were getting that good. And, it became big news that like, look, people can really impersonate other people. And if they're not being transparent about this is a deep fake, then you might think you're actually watching somebody do something who's not that person.
And that can be very dangerous territory. Yeah.
And chances are the reason why she was using it in that particular case was to talk about that situation, because for a while, everybody was talking about it and trying to. How do you show an example without showing an example?
Right. And that's where you would have to do it like this, where you have it as a separate part of the screen and you have something else pointing out on the screen, this is not real, that kind of thing. Where you're transforming it in that way.
And to YouTube's credit, in the last year or so, they have added that when you are uploading, there is checkboxes to say, was there altered content, and can you specify? And anybody out there who is uploading YouTube videos, if you do use AI in anything in there, don't lie on that. Check that box and be transparent about it, because that's going to likely get stricter and stricter.
Yeah. It kind of has to, because again, it's so dangerous to be able to make things that look very accurate and make it look like anyone is saying anything. And it could be used for good, but it could be used for very evil purposes. And this is not good.
Yeah, and don't think you can kind of skate around it like she'd mentioned. Like, there sometimes there's some tricks people do to like get those 5-second clips around the algorithm. Um, that algorithm is getting better and better at detecting modulation and adjustments, time stretching a sound, thinking, oh, this uh dropping graphics on that move around on the screen or an overlay in a certain part that all of a sudden makes it look a little different than the original. But YouTube can tell when there's an overlay on a video that the audio and the things that they're actually matching up, it's multiple fingerprints.
And that's where
So
you do see some where they just try to extract the audio. So you have a movie and they're trying to do the dialogue, but you can hear that they extracted a song out from under it. So you can hear the whooshing sound and all of that kind of stuff that happens when you were using the audio, the song removal techniques back then. But those techniques have gotten better to where you pretty much can remove all the whatever audio from something and replace it with whatever at this point. So
yeah,
it is
you
getting
bet.
harder and harder. So I can understand why the arms race is a back and forth. The better they get at detecting things, the better people get at getting around the things they're using, and then it just goes back and forth like that.
Yeah, yeah, it is an arms race. It's the hackers versus the the internet police.
And just regular content creators who aren't trying to deceive and who just trying to make their stuff and not have it flag, they're getting kind of swept up in the stuff. So it's important to stay up on these things.
Yep. And again, thank you two for this awesome discussion because not only am I learning a lot, it's really helping to come to the decisions we have to come to as a channel and as a network and a platform. With Angified, it's bigger than one channel and one thing. It's being able to manage all of it with multi-content, music, videos. We really do need to know this stuff.
Absolutely.
Structuring the appeal using Gemini, using ChatGPT, using facts and not frustration, typing in emotional stuff to the appeal is not really going to help you, but solid evidence that it's your stuff or fair use arguments. And I think sometimes too, YouTube is not doing all human monitoring. There's no way. The scale of YouTube is so crazy.
Right.
So I would imagine if you submitted an appeal that had strong legal language because you beefed it up with AI with fair use arguments,
right,
that might let the AI, review process, I'm assuming they have, trigger it without a human revealing it. Any thoughts on some of these points, Tyler?
I think yes. I've certainly sent emails that, or my clients have that said, under the advice of my attorney, this is where we believe we stand with our appeal. I have seen those to be a little more effective than when people do it themselves. I think you're totally right. Like, don't be emotional. Don't be like angry and say, oh my God, you're ruining my life. How could you do this? Like, none of that is helpful. Just present the facts, right? These are the same videos I've been making for years. I'm not doing anything differently. Can you please let me know what it is that is violating the community guidelines? I have reviewed the community guidelines. I believe it could be these 2 points, but I'm not sure. Could you guide me more? I think those are good tips. If we could, Sean, we haven't talked about copyright claims. I think it's important to break that down for people because that's something different that sometimes happens to people and creators freak out. They're like, oh my God, I have a copyright claim. I'm going to lose my channel. Okay, so copyright claim is something very different. A copyright claim is an IP holder saying, okay, I know you're using my content. I'm going to let you, but I'm going to share in the AdSense of that video. I have a client, Andy Morris, who is a huge pianist on YouTube. He's like the guy in the college cafeteria who would play, and these like songs, like really famous songs would start playing, and then the whole cafeteria would stop because when you hear like a Coldplay song or like a Imagine Dragons song, like everyone pays attention. But what happens with these music publishers is they will automatically put a claim on the videos. And my client knows this and is totally fine with it. He's fine giving up 30 or 50% of the AdSense because he knows that he's covering someone else's music. He knows he doesn't own it, but he knows by covering these very famous songs, he's going to get millions of views versus an original song where he might get 10,000 views, right? So a copyright claim is simply an IP holder saying, this is my IP and I'm going to share in your AdSense and I'm going to let you use it. And that's something I think a lot of creators don't understand because they just hear claim and they think it's the same thing as a strike. And it actually isn't. It's just a mechanism for the IP holder to share in basically in your success, right? Because it's your IP, it's their IP that's, adding to your successful views or millions of views, and they need a share in that.
And I love the strategy that he.
And that is one that we've seen a ton of over the years where it's acceptable to use the content, especially in the case of music and when it comes to covers, the vast majority, you'll see this recognition of the ID and a message saying that the content user has allowed you to use the content in your video with the understanding that the AdSense is being um, spread to monetize in multiple directions. So, if you're lucky enough to have a YouTube channel that is monetized and you're using content where this comes into play, the ad revenue is being split between the content maker of that ID and the content channel that's using it. It incentivizes on both sides there.
Yeah. And the way she described it, you're basically, the content creator who's using the other content is using the other content as fuel for their IP. So it's, it is, it does make sense that the AdSense would be shared across.
See, and it's much easier to know you're in that situation when you're doing the uploading video approach, where you'll see it as soon as the video finishes uploading, whether that's going to be the case or not. When it comes to live streaming and the situation there, even though the vast majority does recognize this and allows for their content, knowing that it benefits both sides here, there are always going to be those Hotel Californias and certain artists and certain songs that will almost instantly get you a strike or a takedown or a shutdown of your stream just because that little percentage of artists that, whether it's that they have an axe to grind or they just refuse to allow their material to be anywheres but under their umbrella, you won't know if you're live until you do get shut down.
Right. And that is where, there is a difference between the live and the pre-recorded and the uploads. But the other thing is, when she was talking about the copyright claims, that would be something that would only be initiated by the intellectual property owner, not an automatic thing on upload. So the strikes would be the upload thing, but the claims, that would be the owner of the IP allowing you to use it and agreeing to share in the AdSense. Yeah. So that is something that they would have to initiate for sure.
Yeah, usually on those rare situations where it's not allowed, it tends to be the artists are not in control of their own material. It is being enforced by, say, an Orchard or some other like sister company of Sony, where like the company is the one making the like hardcore decision that no intellectual property of ours is going to be allowed to be used by anybody else.
Right. And again, I don't think that's a good strategy, but that is, it's their prerogative.
It doesn't necessarily benefit those companies or those artists, because I think in the long run, the artists that completely shut out their material from being shared or used or even heard around the internet will eventually disappear. And the people will go and listen to what they're allowed to listen to and make and cover, and it's to the benefit of these artists to make their music so popular that everybody wants to cover them.
Yeah, I agree.
We're getting there. We're
Is
learning.
thinking there
See, it is
because,
educational.
yes, we talked about in this episode copyright strikes, community guideline strikes, and copyright claims, where, especially for music channels, well, what if I get a claim and I do lose out on monetization? Okay, you lose out on monetization or you split it, but what about the influence? What about the reach? And we've had a lot of people that are part of our community, our Video Reiki Academy course with music channels. They think about, multiple different ways to make a living as a creator and monetize, and they just don't rely on ad revenue. But if they are oftentimes covering popular songs, even reacting to popular songs, it's kind of a fine line. Just like, well, that might get claimed, but it's not a strike that is not a strike. It's not harming your channel at that moment. It's just affecting the monetization. Well, what is the influence worth? The subscribers, the growth, the views. So the sophisticated creators think it a lot bigger than AdSense. Do I have that right?
Yes. And for me, I'm fractional CEO to some of the biggest YouTubers in the world. I want creators to think way beyond AdSense and brand deals, right? I want them to think about newsletters and communities and launching a physical product beyond merch, right? I want them to think about equity and affiliates. Like, I want them to grow out so that they have 10 or 12 revenue streams, because I believe that YouTube creators are the next studio heads. I mean, you look at Jimmy, you look at Mr. Beast, you look at Darman, you look at Good Mythical Morning. I mean, these are all channels that are studios. We're going to have like 50 small studios going forward versus like the traditional media of 6 studios. But you need to grow your IP portfolios and be smart about it. Because if you want to sell your channel one day, you better make sure your IP is cleared. You're using clean licensed music, because if half of your library is not clean, the chain of titles not clean, no one's going to buy your channel. So you have to actually think 10 steps ahead, where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. Because I believe most creators, that's their life cycle. You hit about 10 years. I mean, you look at Matt, Pat, and Veritasium, they were like 10 to 15 years, right? But then at some point, you're not a kid anymore, right? And you're like, oh, I want to go have a family. I want to have kids. I don't want to do vlogs every day. I mean, it changes, right? So you have to always be thinking ahead.
This is why people should subscribe to the Think Media podcast. Big, thinking different, thinking bigger. And this is why you're one of our favorite guests from our community. I got 3 more of these points as we land the plane on this episode.
Absolutely. Subscribe to the Think Media podcast, and also to Tyler's YouTube, which I do have in the description. I didn't get the page loaded, but her YouTube has just as much information on this situation and how to work with YouTube as Tyler's or as Sean's. And if you are a content creator, use these resources to help guide you down this dark and scary forest that YouTube is at the moment.
Yeah.
I
And it's changing
completely
by
I
the day.
completely agree with her about like how the landscape of media development is 21st century. We are going away from the few big studios that control everything to this independent, smaller studio market. And I like that she equates it to like your IPO, think about what you're building. And even if your intentions is not to build a channel that you eventually sell, which would be like starting up a company and then eventually selling it to something bigger, it's good to think that way, at least, so that it helps you to be more responsible with what you're doing.
Well, even the multiple revenue streams that she talked about, a lot of people, if they just make music, they probably never considered 11 of those revenue streams. And, it's important because some of those could be very valuable to you to allow you to focus more on your music if you can break out and get some of these other things working for you.
In fact, some of the ones she was suggesting there, the new YouTube CEO when he came out earlier this year and was announcing these changes that are coming, and hey, we're going to make it easier to make money in different ways, mentioned some of these approaches, and like Patreon, that's another one that you've seen over the last decade become like an alternate route to supporting artists and content creators. A very popular one. In fact, I'd say I'm seeing more being successful with that approach than they are with getting paid per view.
Sure. Yeah, and again, getting the people to come to your home base, that is important, and that's what the whole your Patreon thing is about: getting people to come to your channel to support you directly, so that you're no longer at the mercy of the platforms themselves. Even if the platforms are where you're primarily sharing your content, they do have somewhere that they can find you specifically.
Yeah, and nice thing with that mechanism is it does allow you to have more exclusive content without so much restrictions. I really want to continue with the format and the approach we have taken for 5 years.
Yeah.
But if we can't, and we do have to make adjustments on the YouTube side, I don't want to lose the ability and sometimes the creative freedom that we have when we're not worried about getting struck down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're almost there.
And if you've been getting value, though, like, rate, share, review the podcast. It means the world. I know we have a lot of audio listeners. You could just go to Spotify and click the star rating. On Apple Podcasts, leaving a review. I know it takes time, but if you did that today, it would mean the world to me and the Think Media team. And thank you so much for being part of our community. And so number 7 was appeal smartly, not emotionally. Number 8, document everything. If you have records of any licenses, permissions, fair use analyses, or editorial notes, that can help. Number 9, consider content insurance. Now, I know you might want to talk about that, but that is in another episode that'll be linked in the show notes, especially for bigger channels. You can buy media liability insurance to cover legal costs if you get sued for copyright defamation or a takedown dispute. And some of this stuff so like everyone just got stressed, like their cortisol went up. They're like, wait a minute. But again, that's especially for bigger channels. Also depends on what kind of content you're doing. If you're just vlogging around your garden or your farm of all your own stuff, media liability insurance might not be as big a deal. But if you are doing gaming and other people's IP, basically just other people's content, OPC, not OPP, naughty by nature, OPC, other people's content, maybe media insurance. And then number 10, when in doubt, leave it out. If you're slightly unsure if something's risky, cut it, because one video isn't worth losing your entire channel. Any final thoughts? And also give a shout out to where people can connect with you as we land the plane with one final question in just a second.
Well, I'm just going to close out the media insurance part. I think people who have channels that do commentaries on people, like remember CoffeeZilla? Like when you're talking about people and you have a journalistic channel, remember he's getting sued by Logan Paul right now and he does not have defamation coverage. So all of his legal costs are coming out of pocket for him. If you do a lot of product reviews, like if you're talking about someone's product that could potentially tank their product and you didn't do your research and you just said this is a terrible product and it kills the whole line. I mean, if someone, if that brand is going to come after you, you better have media insurance that covers you for that. So I think, again, I totally agree with you. My job is to protect and grow creators. So when I am making content, I want people to think about, I feel safer now and I'm going to go make content. Our point, Sean and my point, is not to give you this information and freak you out and say, well, I'm just not going to go make any content now. That is not the point. We're trying to give you all the information so that you can be amazing creators who enjoy this American dream and not have to stress about, well, am I going to get a copyright strike? If you have all this information in mind already before you make the content, we're just trying to empower you basically and give you the information so that you can keep making content and maybe quit your full-time job and do this full-time, right?
I've got one more question for you, but give a shout out. People want to connect with you, follow you. Where can they reach you?
Thank you. So my channel is called Tyler Chou, the Creator's Attorney. I actually write almost every day on LinkedIn. And Sean, I wanted to share the news with you. I'm actually starting my community. Finally, I'm doing I'm doing it on Kajabi. They're great for creators, and this is gonna be really funny, but I do this for creators, right? I help them launch their communities or their newsletters, and I'll share this in real time with you. I have been having the hardest time naming my community. Like I'm literally like down to 3 names. So I'll share it with you, and maybe you can give me some insight, and maybe the audience can tell me what sounds better, right? So at first I thought I was gonna do the Creators Attorney Collective, or maybe it's like the Creators Law Collective, or Creators Law House, like the German spelling. I'm very torn right now and I thought maybe the Creators Court, like a royalty
Creative.
court, but then some people are like, well, does that denote like going to court?
I know
Because
that
that's
you'd be in
negative.
court, and you're going to be judged as opposed to
I know. So, but the point is, I am starting a community, and it's a way for creators to come together. I'll do lives twice a month, and people can come bring their questions, and I'll do case studies with creators solving their problems in real time. And I have a wait list of 1,000 people, and I'll drop the wait list here for you. If you can share it with your audience, and I would love to see them there.
100%. And if you are on the YouTube version or want to head over to the YouTube version of the episode, give Tyler some feedback. Which of those names for her community did you like best, or do you have any other names? The Creators Court, the Creators Community, different community names. Would love your feedback. Okay, final question, Tyler. You just have a unique perspective of seeing the growth, the opportunity, an inside look at what's happening in the creator economy. In 2025, how do you feel about the future of the creator economy and the opportunity for those that are even just starting or early on in their journey?
Oh my God. We have arrived, Sean. I mean, you are a pioneer because you've been doing this for so much longer. But I was at NAB 2 weeks ago, and I was invited to this private dinner, and it was the most insane dinner. So it was the head of Lionsgate, Amazon, Warner Brother Discovery, Fremantle, BBC, Bloomberg. And then the other half of the room were it was like me and Jim Louderback and like all the creator. And then Epidemic Sound was there, 11 Labs was there. So all the people in the creator space and all the legacy companies were just trying, we were the shiny pets, basically. They wanted to learn from us. They want to know how to get into the space. They want to know what do we do with our billion minutes of content, our library? And I said, put it on YouTube. That's literally free AdSense that you're going to make, right? But they're not even thinking that. But what I'm seeing is, I mean, look, NAB had one stage last year for Creator Lab. This year it tripled to 3. Next year we're going to be on the main stage. I mean, this is the progression we're seeing, the focus on the digital creator space and how much money is pouring into this space. I mean, Unilever just said that they're going to spend 50% more this year on influencer marketing than they did last year. And we're talking about probably hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Because we know Unilever. And everyone's focus is on creators now. You look at Mr. Beast's show on Amazon, I mean, that will become normal. You will get big creators doing shows on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu. The future is very, very bright for creators. So if you're thinking about starting your YouTube channel, there's no better time than now. I put YouTube channels into trusts for my clients' kids. It's more valuable than real estate these days. I have clients who have 100,000 subs who are going to hit 7 figures this year. It's not about how big your subscriber count is. It's about how deep your knowledge is and how dedicated your audience is to you. You can grow a 6 or 7 figure business based on your YouTube channel. And it's just so amazing. And I'm just so happy for creators.
The future is bright, and YouTube is an investment in the future. I want to thank you for listening to the Think Media podcast today. Rate, review, share wherever you watch or listen. My name is Sean Cannell, your guide to building a profitable YouTube channel, and we will connect with you in a future episode.
Oh, I'm going and jumping on that waiting list for her community. And if she hasn't, if she hasn't settled in on a name, given what her mission is there, the Creators Connection. because that's what she's building there, a
Mm-hmm.
place for creators to connect and get the kind of advice that is gold when you're starting out.
I like it.
It's funny that like they thought like a lot of content creators might watch something like that and come away feeling like scared or like uh little anxiety, but I actually feel relieved. I feel like I understand a little better now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel more inspired about building a channel with the kind of advice they both gave here. They're actually good at encouraging responsible content creation.
Right. And responsible is the key there for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I found her YouTube, which, see, Tyler, subscribed.
All right.
You are now in our list
Mhm.
at the Creator's Attorney. So glad that I went this direction this week. You know, I after seeing, especially at the end of our stream, seeing it get cut like that, shut down, and then them deleting the episode like with no response afterwards. Thank God we do actually record our stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I was kind of like what they were talking about, like feeling emotional and like almost like taking it personal and ready to like go yell at YouTube like you
Because that
bastards.
works.
But I did do what she said. I disputed it. I did exactly like she had suggested, which was, you know, ask, like I have looked at the community guidelines. I'm trying to figure out what could be the problem here. I think it might be this, but I'm not sure. Can you help us to understand and avoid this in the future?
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I don't think it did make it to a human because we didn't get any response. It was just your appeal has been denied and the video's gone.
Hmm.
But
Unfortunate.
now I'm understanding a little more about things here, and definitely gonna be going to Sean's resources because she's not lying. He's been at it for a long time. I've already gone to his equipment reviews and all of that because he does have some great stuff for like the gear side of content creation.
Hmm.
But this side is a big asset to like everything we're doing and building. And at Think Media Podcast is like definitely a great place to go to build up your channel. That's his mission.
Yeah. Getting that YouTube channel going.
Yeah. YouTube needs more encouragement like this. You know, I see so much potential in other channels, but uh, I think a lot of them get lost in the shuffle. And I really hope like this one becomes like one of the de facto sources for mentoring the rest of YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube does need some fixing, both on the platform side and on the content creator side. And these two are going to help there.
Yeah. And as you said, a little different than our usual format, but very important topic. Important to go into a video of at length in order to cover a lot of that stuff. So glad we were able to make the adjustment for today.
Yeah, yeah. We ran a marathon tonight.
And we broke it up, broke it up in between, and discussed the parts as necessary. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I like
and it does work better breaking it up when you do have these longer form, and in this case, like a nice kind of conversation, or if it's a debate, something like that, those are like convenient to pause, reflect, go on, pause, reflect, go on. He had a great flow. The question answer approach that they took and that list, uh, definitely gonna burn that list into my brain of considerations.
Yeah, important stuff there for sure.
Yes. So again, special thanks to Sean Channing.
Thanks much.
Sean Cannell, sorry. And you can, in our description, I've got links to both their sites, their resources. Um, Check them out. Even if you're not a YouTube channel or dealing with that yet, check them out to understand what your content creators are dealing with,
Right.
and then
And
you'll
how the
start
landscape is changing. Yeah.
then you'll start to understand why you're getting the content you're getting.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Tyler Chou. Both amazing resources here.
Great stuff.
I hope we did you justice. If there is any problems, if you would prefer that we don't use the content, you can contact us at angifylive@gmail.com, and we hope that we shared your channel properly and this content. That's our mission always. It's about education and sharing the knowledge, and this was important this week.
Very much so. And again, we'll be back because this subject is not going away. And this isn't going to be like, oh, we fixed it tomorrow. This is going to be something that's going to continue to be a back and forth over the years. And it's important to understand the battleground that is, being defined at this point.
Yeah, yeah. So in the future and for next week and going forward, at least at the moment, we will be on our YouTube channel at Talkin Shhh I.T. If we do end up taking a hit, at least it's it's a smaller channel, and it's one that is just for our show. I hope we can eventually put it back on Angie's YouTube, because that is home for us and for a lot of other shows. But we do need to be careful. We don't want to damage that channel. So this is why we're going to shift over to our YouTube channel, and we're going to upload the episodes afterwards. Once we know that the episode is cleared on our channel, then we'll go through the process of making it available afterwards. If you want to watch us live, it'll be there, Twitch, Facebook. We'll still be live on those. Though there have never been any problems on those platforms. So.
Yeah, different community guidelines.
Yes. So it's so confusing.
But we just click the buttons and it goes. It's magic.
Yeah, and it's less confusing after learning some of this.
Yes.
So
excellent advice. And thanks Tony for putting it all together and finding this subject for this week.
Yeah, this one really hit home.
For sure.
So we'll see you tomorrow night. I'm going to check with Ange and see what's going on there. And we'll be back next Thursday.
For some more Talkin Shhh I.T. Thanks, everybody.
Night, everyone.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and sets that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking